Happening now, a rally underway at Fargo City Hall surrounding the man that was shot and killed by a Fargo police officer Friday. Shane Netterville was shot. Police say he was trying to flee in a vehicle after officers approached a van that he was in at an apartment garage. The officer who shot him, 11-year veteran Adam O'Brien, is on administrative leave while the North Dakota Bureau of Criminal Investigation looks into the matter. The people who have gathered at City Hall are demanding the release of body cam footage from that incident. That's where we find Valley News Team's crime and safety reporter Bailey Hurley. Bailey, what's going on?
Mike, this hasn't officially started yet. We have about 20 people who have gathered here in front of City Hall. They are, again, like you said, they're demanding the release of the body camera footage. They're also planning to sign up to speak at tonight's City Commission meeting, to speak to city leaders, to demand this release of the body camera footage, to demand answers from the Fargo Police Department. Something that was posted on the Justice for Shane event page this afternoon was whether Shane was driving the vehicle with homicidal intent or not. Police should never be the judge, the jury, and the executioner. They say that Shane was a brother, he was a son, he was a great uncle. They want justice. They want to see this video for themselves so the public can determine if this shooting was justified or not. Mike, I have asked both Fargo Police, the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, as well as the Cass County State's Attorney's Office. At this point, it's very confusing as to who this would come down on, who would release this video early if they decide to. Right now, the finger is pointed in all different directions as to who that decision would fall upon. We're hoping to find more clarity with this week on who would make that decision, and is that going to happen this week. We'll continue to keep you updated throughout the rest of the evening. For now, live in downtown Fargo, Bailey Hurley, Valley News Live.
All right, thanks so much, Bailey. And Fargo PD says it is standard operating procedure to place officers connected to an officer-involved shooting on paid administrative leave until that investigation into the use of force has been completed. Well, on to the weather now. Hang on. Today could be the coolest day of the week. Summer Schnobuck is here with details on the heat and humidity to come. Summer?
Yeah, Mike, thanks so much, and good evening, everyone. Enjoy this quote-unquote cool down while we have it. Temperatures have been in the 70s and 80s today, thanks to cold fronts that swept through over the weekend, and those same cold fronts brought some stormy activity. Take a look at this report from Fairfield, North Dakota, where there was some extensive damage. A 10-foot by 12-foot building with a lot of weight in it completely demolished. A tower standing 150 feet tall was downed by these strong winds. This is at 2:36 Central Time yesterday morning. Those same storms rolled across the valley. Thankfully, we didn't have winds nearly that strong, but some of those storms are still lingering. We're still seeing some remnants of that across northwestern Minnesota, with just some showers and rumbles at this time as that storm system continues to roll off to the east. Temperatures today, though, have been much more comfortable. 70s and 80s. We're at 81 in Fargo, Grand Forks, and in Fergus Falls. And if you're planning to head out to the fair tonight, the Renegade Monster Trucks begins at 7:30. Temperatures will be comfortable, but it's going to be windy. Now stick around. I have a lot more information on the heat and, yes, more humidity that is still on the way.
Challenging week ahead.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. Carrington, North Dakota Police Chief Brandon Sola was laid to rest today at the Fargo National Veterans Cemetery. A law enforcement escort brought his body from Minot to Fargo. Sola was a North Dakota Air National Guard sergeant who died 2 weeks ago in a motorcycle crash. He was 36. Sola, who was born in Mayville, was raised in Mapleton, later graduated from West Fargo High School. He worked at the North Dakota Highway Patrol before taking the job as Carrington's police chief. Valley City's fire department set to tribute to a fallen police officer Sola on exit 294. The flag could be seen by the motorcade as they made their way to Fargo this morning. More than 25,000 signatures were presented to North Dakota's Secretary of State in an aim to put an initiated measure on the general election ballot this year. Supporters are leading an effort to permit adults 21 and older to legally possess limited amounts of cannabis, as well as legally purchase products from registered cannabis establishments. The measure also includes policies to regulate cannabis businesses such as retail stores and cultivators. The Secretary of State has until August 15th to decide if there's a sufficient amount of valid signatures for the measure to be placed on the ballot later this year. President Joe Biden hosted an event at the White House today, just weeks after he signed a new gun control bill into law. This legislation was passed in the wake of shootings in Buffalo and Uvalde, but since that time there have been other mass shootings, including one in a Chicago suburb. Skylar Henry has the very latest from the White House.
Geraldine Talley, Pearl Young, and Mrs. Ruth E. Whitfield, our 86-year-old mother.
Victims of gun violence joined President Biden at the White House, hailing the passage of the nation's first major gun legislation in nearly 30 years.
As we have seen, no community is immune to the fallout. Rather, the fallout is landing in our backyard on a weekly basis.
Congress passed the bill last month in the wake of recent mass shootings in Buffalo and Uvalde.
This new law requires young people under 21 to go enhanced background checks before purchasing a gun.
The father of a 17-year-old killed in the high school shooting in Parkland, Florida in 2018, shouted at President Biden to do more. President Biden is calling for the return of the assault weapons ban of 1994 that he helped pass when he was a senator.
In that 10 years it was law, mass shootings went down. When the law expired in 2004 and those weapons were allowed to be sold again, mass shootings tripled.
Just last week, another mass shooter used a high-powered military-style assault weapon to kill 7 people at a July 4th parade in the Chicago suburb of Highland Park.
We believe strongly in the state of Illinois in protecting our citizens from these kinds of weapons, but if the states around us don't, then what are we to do?
The White House says it's also celebrating the 21 executive actions President Biden has signed to address gun violence, including a ruling on ghost guns, requiring homemade guns contain serial numbers so they can be traced. Skylar Henry, CBS News, the White House.
An assassin used a homemade gun to kill former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe last week. Minnesota's Attorney General Keith Ellison today joined a coalition of 20 attorneys general filing an amicus brief in support of an important new Biden administration rule regulating ghost guns. Ghost guns are untraceable, lethal weapons that can be found and made at home from weapon parts kits that anyone, including felons, juveniles, and domestic abusers, can purchase online without background checks. Nationally, law enforcement officers recovered 1,700 self-made guns in 2016, but more than 19,000 in 2021, an 11-fold increase. Since 1972, the first test of presidential hopefuls has started from Iowa. But after 2020's caucus chaos, the Democratic National Committee is considering shaking up the schedule, and several states are vying for the honor. Nevada is one of those states making a big play to move to the head of the line, with key voting blocs including Latino and Asian American Pacific Islanders, in addition to unions. Midwestern states, including Minnesota and Michigan, are also battling to replace Iowa. Whichever state lands in that coveted first spot, it could make or break a presidential campaign.
They create a momentum, they create a message that the party has decided, and they've decided very quickly, when really the parties would be better served by a calendar that was longer and a process that engaged more people.
A vote by the DNC's Rules and Bylaws Committee is expected at the beginning of August, with a final vote before the full DNC expected in September. A state district court has ruled that several of Minnesota's abortion restrictions violate the state constitution. Among them, the court permanently banned the state's 24-hour waiting period that requires patients to delay their abortion care after consulting with a health care provider. Planned Parenthood North Central states called the ruling a great victory. Meanwhile, the group Minnesota Citizens Concerned for Life is calling for that ruling to be appealed. 2 super infectious Omicron strains of the dominant COVID-19 variants sweeping the U.S. California is now seeing one of its most significant surges since the start of the pandemic, and a growing concern is the number of people getting reinfected with the virus. Experts are worried without the repeat infections.
If you've had a first infection and you manage to dodge long COVID, having a second infection, you're literally rolling the dice again.
The doctor found patients with 2 or more infections had more than twice the risk of dying compared to patients with just 1 infection. They had 3 times the risk of being hospitalized and faced higher odds of getting long COVID. A reminder about a new road construction project east of Moorhead. Those of you driving on Highway 336 will surely run into lane closures through mid-August. Crews are repairing the concrete of Highway 336 in both directions from Highway 10 to I-94.